Well, hello. We are going to be going over genetic crosses, so genetics, very exciting, and Punnett squares. Okay, remember that your genes are made of DNA, so basically we're figuring out, like, if I mix DNA of two organisms, what would the genotypes and phenotypes be of their children? So the first thing we need to go over is Mendelian genetics. When you see that, like, what is that? What does that mean? Okay, that's referring to this lovely person named Gregor Mendel. He's the father of genetics. He was actually a monk and used to watch, or like used to study pea plants. So he would take like a green pea plant and a yellow pea plant and mate them together and be like, see what their kids were. And he figured out the percentages of what's the most likely and how do you figure that out. So pretty cool. Couple things that you need to know before we get into all of this fun genetic stuff is dominant versus recessive. A dominant gene does not mean that it's more common. It just means that if you have it anywhere in your genotype, you are going to express that trait. You only need, when we write the genotypes that kind of look like this, you only need one dominant gene or one capital letter to express whatever trait or characteristic that it is. Whereas recessive, we represent it by a lowercase letter, and you actually need two copies of that gene to express that trait. We're going to go through an example to kind of hopefully make that a little bit clearer. Example, in dogs, black fur is dominant to white fur. This is the part where I annotate. If black fur is dominant, that means that it is going to be represented by a capital letter. I could choose any letter that I would so desire. I chose B because we're talking about black fur. It says that it's dominant to white fur, which means that white fur is recessive. I will represent that by a little b. Notice that I did not use the letter W. That's because we're still talking about the same gene, which is fur color. So black being dominant is a capital B, white being recessive is a little b. Alright, what is the expected phenotypic ratio of the crossing of a heterozygous black dog and a white dog? Rewind. Let's go over some vocabulary. Genotypes and phenotypes. Genotypes are the letters that you use to represent traits. Phenotypes are the traits or characteristic. It's what you look like. In this case, the phenotypes that it's talking about is the black fur versus white fur, and then the crossing of a heterozygous black dog and a white dog. There are different types of genotypes that we can have. That is homozygous dominant, which means that I have two capital letters. Homo means same, dominant is capital, two capital letters. That was in that hand gesture. It was like my two index fingers. Heterozygous means different. That means I'm going to have one capital and one lowercase. Hand gesture, it was like this. I have one capital, one lowercase. That's heterozygous. And then finally, homozygous recessive. Homo is same, recessive is too little. So my hand gesture would be my two pinkies, because they're too little. With each of these genotypes comes a phenotype. So if I have a homozygous dominant genotype, I have two capital B's, two capital letters. I only need one capital letter to express that trait. In this case, we're talking black fur is dominant, so they would have black fur. For heterozygous, it would still express the dominant trait because I have at least one capital letter. But for homozygous recessive, I would have white fur because I have two little letters to say it. I need two genes to express that trait. Now we go back to the question. It's asking if I crossed a heterozygous black dog and a white dog. If it's heterozygous, that means that it would have just genotype, and a white dog, in order to be white, I need two little letters. When I cross them, I need to do a Punnett square. I put one parent on top and one parent on the side. Okay, notice this is the black dog, this is the white dog. And then I just fill it in like a multiple choice table. So the one from the top, one from the side. One from the top, one from the side. one from the top, one from the side. I always write the capital letter first. It just helps me pick up trends, but you could really write it in any order. It doesn't matter. Okay, let's look at this. It's asking me for the phenotypic ratio, which means how many are black, how many are white. Let's look at these two. So I have two that are BB, and that means they will be black. So I have two that are black, and then I have two little b. That means that they are going to be white. I just used my chart. Okay, there are 4 total options. Okay, that means that to be black, you have a 2 out of 4 chance. To be white, you have a 2 out of 4 chance. That means that you got a 50-50 shot of having a black dog or a white dog. And that was Mendelian genetics. Now, sorry, this video keeps going. Okay, now we talk about non-Mendelian genetics. Mendelian genetics is like dealing with one gene, like there's one dominant letter, like there's one dominant trait. Non-Mendelian genetics is when things get a little bit more complicated. Blood type, like you can have things that are co-dominant. Co-dominance is when both, like there's 2 dominant traits. This would be like if I mated an animal with polka dots and an animal with stripes, their child would have both polka dots and stripes. That's the best way I can describe it. Blood type works a little bit similarly because it's going to have both. Well, I'll just show you. Your blood type, everybody has a blood type. You can have A or B, AB or O. Your type of blood type is your phenotype. Your genotype is how we write that. That would be the equivalent to like these. There are a couple ways that you can write it. Type A and type B can either be homozygous or they can be heterozygous, meaning they can have AA for type A, or they can be AO or AI, which means that we're mixing it a little bit with type O. O is the only sort of recessive one. Let's go through a problem so this doesn't take forever. Okay, a mother has type O blood and a father has homozygous type A blood. Okay, if they have type O blood, I can represent that with 2 O's or 2 little i's, doesn't matter. And if I'm homozygous type A blood, that means that I'm capital A, capital A. I'm not AO or AI. I'm homozygous, which means I have 2 capital letters. What are the possible genotypes for the blood types if they had a child? Ha! Punnett square. Okay. Mom, OO. Or you could have written II, it doesn't matter. Dad, A. Okay. AO, 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 AO. All the way around. My blood type that I can have is AO. I can also write that AI. The way they're writing it here, also I could write AI, like that. All of those are the same thing. I know that's super confusing, but it's all the same way to write the exact same thing. My answer is going to be D because this was the only type of blood type that I got with this cross. That is your review. Sorry that was super long. But that was Mendelian genetics and non-Mendelian genetics. Blood type is a super interesting thing to study, and if you can donate blood, you should do it because lots of people need it. Alright, have fun, bye.